Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are undertaking a pretty substantial investigation into two powerful, decaying nations, England and France, as they hurtled toward the French Revolution.
Yeah, our source material is this incredibly rich, massive, novelistic exploration detailing the parallel lives of London and Paris in the late 18th century. It's a time where, well, social sins were just piling up, really forcing the few truly good people into these extraordinary acts of sacrifice.
And our mission today, yours and mine, and for you listening, is to cut through the sheer density of this historical period. We want to pull out the essential insights and, frankly, the shocking, brutal contrasts that define 1775, the year the clock basically ran out, though, few of the ruling class realized it.
Exactly. We're tracking the architecture of oppression, you could say, from the almost casual chaos of England to the monumental, deliberate tyranny of France. And we're trying to find those precise points where private loyalty and love were forced right up against national, bloodthirsty fate.
And the greatest irony, it's laid out for us right at the very beginning, isn't it?
It really is.
The sources introduce us to the central delusion of the time. The lords holding the loaves and fishes, all the wealth and power, were utterly convinced that things in general were settled forever. They had these two kings with large jaws, two queens, one plain-faced in England, one fair-faced in France. But these figureheads were, well, just window dressing for this deep structural decay happening underneath.
That complacency is just the perfect setup, the intellectual poison setting the stage. It speaks volumes about the absolute certainty of that ruling class. They believed their system was unshakable, maybe even divinely ordained, incapable of fundamental change.
They didn't just believe it.
No, they structured their entire society in that premise. They simply couldn't conceive of the ground shifting beneath their feet. It wasn't in their worldview.
Yet, as the narrative makes painfully clear, the structure in both countries was already rotten, just rotten in two very distinct ways. So let's start with England, 1775. The narrative is pretty blunt. England's lack of national boasting was completely justified because the illusion of order was constantly being shattered by, well, domestic anarchy.
Absolutely. You see two kinds of violence playing out. There's the institutional violence of the law, which we'll get into, and then there's the casual, widespread violence of the populace.
Yeah.
The sources detail violent crime as being so prevalent, it was practically an environmental hazard. We're talking armed burglaries, highway robberies happening in the capital itself every night. This wasn't, confined to dark alleys.
No, right in the open.
Major streets, busy roads. And it was shockingly normalized.
And what's terrifying is who was doing it, often just regular people, after hours.
Exactly. That anecdote about the highwayman, the captain,
Yeah.
he was actually a respected city tradesman by day.
Incredible.
And when he's recognized by a fellow tradesman he's trying to rob, does he run? Does he apologize? No. He just shoots him through the head, rides off.
It's a perfect symbol, isn't it? The system feeding on itself, blurring the lines between respectable citizen and, well, ruthless criminal.
It speaks to a profound lack of fear about consequences, which in turn reflects how inefficient the law actually was at policing everyday life. Think about the mail coach journeys.
The lifeline, really. Communication, commerce.
Absolutely. And those sources detail this one incident. The coach waylaid by 7 robbers. The guard fights back bravely, shoots 3 dead.
But then
Then he shot dead himself because he ran out of ammo, in consequence of the failure of his ammunition. And the robbers, they just took their time, robbed the mail in peace.
just astounding. Even the highest officials weren't safe. The Lord Mayor of London himself.
Yeah, the optics on that are just, wow.
The city's chief magistrate forced to stand and deliver on Turnham Green by a single highwayman in front of his whole retinue.
It's not just a mugging, it's a public humiliation. It shows that authority was hollow, fragile, utterly incapable of maintaining security, even for its own top representatives.
And if the criminals were that brazen, the law's response was just brutal, inefficient theater.
Completely. We read about the legal system being so overwhelmed, prisoners fighting turnkeys. Sometimes the majesty of the law had to fire blunderbusses loaded with shot and ball into the jails just to regain control.
Just firing into the crowd.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got thieves at court drawing rooms so daring they're snipping diamond crosses from the necks of noble lords. The threat was everywhere. From the lowest jail to the highest society event, it didn't matter.
And the official response to crime, it was defined by this terrifying imbalance. The hangman was constantly busy,
Perpetually busy.
executing people for everything from, atrocious murder down to robbing a farmer's boy of sixpence.
Sixpence. Death was the catch-all penalty. There was no logical gradation of punishment, which meant often no real deterrence. If you're going to hang for stealing a loaf, might as well hang for murder, right?
Exactly. And while all this earthly chaos and brutality was unfolding, while the very real American Revolution was brewing, sending these unheeded messages from Congress across the Atlantic, what was the English public obsessed with?
Supernatural distractions. It's incredible.
Totally focused on ghosts and prophecies.
Their common consciousness was fixated on, silly spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
The latest prophecy granted to this Mrs. Southcott, or the relatively recent laying of the infamous Cock Lane ghost, which had apparently spent years rapping out messages.
Seeking divine answers and hauntings while ignoring actual, critical, earthly messages from their own colonies. It beggars belief.
It's a profound commentary, isn't it? On the deep detachment of the English psyche from the reality bearing down on them. They could process a disembodied ghost rapping in the walls, but they couldn't process the political and military messages of rebellion.
Looking up for signs.
When the real danger was knocking right on their door. Material danger.
And that sense of pervasive danger, that profound distrust, it carries right over into the next part of our deep dive. The terrifying reality of just trying to travel in that era, if London was that dangerous.
Imagine venturing out onto the road.
Yeah.
The journey to Dover, described in the sources, it's not some quaint stagecoach ride. It's a high-stakes gamble through a landscape just coated in fear.
And the physical setting reflects that dread.
Absolutely. The narrative describes this clammy and intensely cold mist that had roamed in its forlornness up the hill like an evil spirit. So dense, the coach lamps only cut through a few yards.
Creating this profound sense of isolation, vulnerability, the three passengers plodding up the hill, hidden from the world, but more importantly, hidden from each other.
And that physical darkness immediately breeds psychological darkness among them. They were very shy of being confidential on a short notice.
Not just politeness.
No, it was a defense mechanism. Because anyone, a fellow passenger, the innkeeper, even the stable boy, could be in league with robbers, maybe secretly taking the captain's pay. Aggressive distrust was the only rational survival policy.
And the security, the armed guard, reflects that. That description is phenomenal.
Isn't it? The guard beating his feet to keep warm, but his eyes fixed on that arm chest, which contained, well, the tools of sudden violent death.
A loaded blunderbuss right on top.
Right on top of 6 to 8 loaded horse pistols, which were themselves sitting on a substratum of cutlass. It was a mobile armory, basically, designed for a firefight.
And the guard's suspicion was hair trigger.
Immediate and deadly. If any passenger, maybe out of impatience, wanting to stress their legs, if they had the hardihood to propose to another to walk on a little ahead into the mist,
They'd likely get shot.
instantly, as a highwayman, the fear was so intense, any unannounced move was seen as aggression. Total paranoia.
We see that paranoia perfectly when that messenger delivers the note to Mr. Lorry.
Oh yeah. The passengers immediately, simultaneously, hide their watches and purses in their boots, pretending to be asleep.
Why? Just to avoid doing anything else.
Exactly, to escape the hazard of originating any other kind of action that might be misinterpreted as, a signal to robbers. Survival meant freezing, staying secret, feigning unconsciousness.
It's a deeply memorable scene. Shows that in 1775 England, freedom of movement was basically replaced by the tyranny of fear.
Absolutely.
The destination for Mr. Lorry, our central figure here, is Tellson's Bank in London. And the bank itself is this monument to extreme, backward-looking conservatism, really reflecting the entrenched nature of English power.
It's described with this brilliant irony as the triumphant perfection of inconvenience.
Right.
The bank valued tradition above everything. The rule was partners would literally disinherit their own sons just for suggesting any hint of modernization or improvement.
Any change at all.
The bank's philosophy mirrored the establishment's belief. The old ways, no matter how inefficient, were inherently righteous, sacred almost.
And the physical reality just reinforces this misery. To get in, you burst open this door with idiotic obstinacy, fall down 2 steps.
Right into this dingy little shop. Iron bars everywhere.
Money comes out of wormy old wooden drawers. Even the banknotes have a musty odor, as if they were fast decomposing into rags again. It smells and feels like history just decaying in place.
And for clients needing an audience with the house, they were shoved into this dismal waiting area, known as the species of condemned hold at the back.
We should pause on that term, condemned hold.
Yeah, it's potent. It's where people wait for their fate, usually in a prison right before sentencing or execution. By calling the bank's waiting room this, the sources directly link the inconvenience of finance to the brutality of state power. It's not just inconvenient, it's ominous.
But the truly horrific detail, the one that just underscores the complete brutality normalized in the capital, is the view from upstairs.
Oh, yeah. The letterboxes of family papers, documents, they were ogled through the windows by the freshly severed heads exposed on Temple Bar.
That contrast. The sacred, delicate documents, love letters, family history, business deals, things the bank is supposed to protect, being watched by the grotesque spoils of state violence on public display.
It shows the pervasive sickness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The line between civilian life and state terror was basically non-existent. It was all just there, together.
In this whole journey, the arrival at Tellson's, is all wrapped up in Mr. Laurie's deeply secret mission, the core theme, recalled to life.
Right. Laurie is outwardly focused on business, drafts honored, strong room safe, documents secure, all very proper.
Very Tellson's.
Very Tellson's. But his constant inner current, his true mission, is digging someone out of a grave. And that someone is Dr. Manette.
The description of this buried man is just heartbreaking. He's 45, but his hair is prematurely white.
His internal life is this shifting landscape of trauma. His face shows these alternating passions: pride, contempt, defiance, submission, lamentation, just cycling through. It reflects the psychological devastation of being buried alive by the French aristocracy for, what was it?
Almost 18 years.
18 years. Imagine.
And the emotional paradox of his situation, that's what makes it so devastating. When Laurie, in his mind, asks the specter if he cares to live, the answer is just this heartbreaking resignation. I can't say.
Just flat. No energy left.
And the thought of being reunited with his daughter, Lucy, it provokes these contradictory, almost suicidal responses. Sometimes it's, wait, it would kill me if I saw her too soon. Other times, in this flood of tears, take me to her.
He's physically alive, but his psyche is utterly fractured, caught between the hope of love and the sheer terror of memory.
And that buried trauma is the direct result of the system across the Channel, which leads us neatly out of England's chaotic, often negligent disorder and into France, where the architecture of oppression is much more overt, deliberate, and ultimately devastating.
Yeah, if England was suffering from this kind of uncontrolled, almost casual anarchy, France was different. Across the Channel, the structure of oppression was deliberate, monumental, gilded, epitomized by the Monseigneur system.
The sources open with the sheer absurdity of Monseigneur, one of the great lords, and his fortnightly reception. The details just reveal the scale of his ego, his opulence.
He couldn't even take his morning chocolate without 4 strong men besides the cook.
5 people.
5 people for 1 cup of chocolate. This simple personal act required this massive, dedicated display of human labor and hierarchy. It's not just wealth. It's a statement that his personal comfort was worth the completely wasted effort of 5 men.
And his ideas about the world were just as self-serving.
Totally. He believed the world was made entirely for his pleasures. All public business had to naturally bend to his will. His motto was essentially, "The earth and the fullness thereof are mine," saith Monseigneur, claiming divine right to everything.
And the social cost of this vanity was immediate, violent for the common people. We see it in how his subordinates behaved. His coachman driving with furious recklessness.
Viewing the common people as rats, just rats to be scattered before his massive carriage. And the nobility found this acceptable, even agreeable.
Yeah, the Marquis, another noble figure, actually enjoyed seeing them scrambling, often barely escaping being run down. Their entitlement wasn't abstract. It was literally a life-threatening force in the streets.
And that disregard just explodes in the incident at the fountain. A critical moment showing the pure callousness of the French elite. The Marquis's carriage, charging through a narrow street, kills a child. Instantly.
His response is one of the most chilling moments, I think, because of the profound lack of any emotion.
None. He looks out, having clapped his hand on his sword hilt when the father approached him. Threateningly. And he just states calmly, "It is extraordinary to me that you people cannot take care of yourselves and your children." Then throws a gold coin as recompense, and adds he'd willingly ride over any of you very willingly and exterminate them. Calls them dogs.
The value of a human life, a single gold coin, and a wish to kill more.
It's horrifying. And that poverty, that desperation is visible just outside his chateau in the village nearby.
The sources describe it vividly. Poor brewery, poor tannery, poor tavern, basic industry, but crippled. Why?
The taxes. State, church, and lord. So heavy, the kind people were reduced to washing leaves and grasses for food. just to survive.
Their entire existence was this stark choice, wasn't it?
Life on the lowest possible terms, or captivity and death in the dominant prison on the crag. That was it. And when the Marquis meets his nephew, Darnay, his face is described like a fine mask,
Hiding the cruelty.
showing it only in the pinched nostrils. Civility hiding pure malice, and he immediately confesses it, calmly tells Darnay the family held absolute right of life and death over the surrounding vulgar.
And critically, he says he wants to die perpetuating the system.
Not out of belief, but pure pride in his inherited power. It perfectly summarizes the absolute moral bankruptcy of the French nobility. No justification needed beyond "this is ours."
And while the Monsignor system was busy starving its people across town, resistance was quietly organizing in the suburb of Saint-Antoine, preparing to extract the monumental cost.
Saint-Antoine is just defined by visceral, physical misery. Narrow, winding streets full of offense and stench, people in rags but with eyes of fire.
Their foreheads knitted into the likeness of the gallows rope they mused about enduring or inflicting. That's powerful imagery.
It is. The only things flourishing were tools and weapons. Everything else was decay.
And the wine spill tableau.
Oh, magnificent symbolism, foreshadowing the bloodbath. Red wine spills, desperate people lap it up from the mud, smearing it on their faces.
And it culminates with that tall figure.
Dipping his finger in the muddy wine lees and scrawling the word blood on the wall. The people are literally baptizing themselves in the image of future slaughter. It's prophetic.
The organization itself is silent, built around Monsieur Defarge, the wine shopkeeper, and the three Jacques, Jacques 1, 2, 3, code names for revolutionary agents.
But the truly ominous figure is Madame Defarge, constantly knitting her register. An index of doomed names.
With great apparent calmness and repose of spirit.
While her needles are literally weaving the aristocracy's fate. And we hear about the specific atrocities they're tallying. Through the mender of roads.
Right, he testifies about seeing a man hanging by the chain from the Marquise's carriage. A grotesque way to die.
And later, executed on a 40-foot gallows right by the fountain, literally poisoning the water the people drank. These individual acts of repression are being logged moment by moment on Madame Defarge's register, building the ledger of debt the revolution will demand be paid in full.
This collective fury, it's going to crash across the channel eventually. But before that, we return to the supposed order of English justice in 1780 for the treason trial of Charles Darnay.
And the setting, the Old Bailey itself, was terrifying, notorious for breeding dire diseases that could rush from the dock and kill the judge.
Imagine the judge sentencing someone to death, potentially pronouncing his own doom at the same time.
Exactly. The whole system was defined by the pillory, the whipping post, and the morally corrupt business of blood money.
We should pause on that. Blood money.
Yeah, it was the practice of giving rewards to informants, professional witnesses for securing convictions. It created an entire industry of people willing to lie, spy, traffic in false testimony, just to claim a bounty. Justice was about cash, not truth.
And that's what Darnay is up against.
Exactly. The accusation is treason passing between France and England before the first battle of the American Revolution. The prosecution's key witnesses are John Barsad, the unimpeachable patriot, and the servant Cly.
Presented as paragons of virtue.
By the Attorney General, yes. Shining examples of loyalty.
Okay.
But the defense counsel, Mr. Stryver, the aggressive glib lion of the courtroom, he skillfully dismantles them.
How?
He exposes Barsad and Cly as exactly what they are: spies, false swearers, unblushing traffickers in blood. People whose whole existence was based on profiting from the death penalty. The evidence was so flimsy it basically hinged on one key reluctant witness.
Lucy Manette.
Lucy. Her testimony was crucial but so dangerous for Darnay. She described his gentle kindness to her frail father on the boat, and she innocently recalled his jesting way, reference to George Washington, maybe gaining as great a name as George III.
Just an offhand comment.
A flippant remark. But the prosecution immediately sees it as concrete proof of guilt. Treacherous intentions confirmed.
So what saved Darnay? It wasn't clear innocence.
No, it was sheer profound confusion. The jury became deeply bewildered by the presence of Sidney Carton in the courtroom, who bore this striking, almost twin-like resemblance to the prisoner.
They couldn't tell them apart.
Couldn't tell them apart. It muddied all the witness accounts, destroyed any certainty. That physical resemblance was the philosophical hinge that turned the case. The jury couldn't distinguish the innocent man from the dissolute genius sitting next to him. The message rushed to Mr. Lorry was simply, acquitted.
And this acquittal formally introduces us to Sidney Carton, maybe the most complex figure in the whole story, defined by this profound dual nature, this wasted potential.
He is the jackal to Stryver's lion. Stryver, loud, bold, seemingly brilliant, was nothing without Carton.
Stryver lacked the real brainpower.
Lacks the ability to extract the essence from a heap of confusing legal stuff. Carton, described as the idlest and most unpromising of men, did all the intense, late-night drunken boiling down of complex cases. He handed Stryver every single coherent point that Stryver would later claim as his own genius in court.
The tragedy of Carton is his perfect self-awareness, though.
Oh, completely.
Ah.
He recognizes the waste forces within him, admits there's a desert all around his life, feels no good in himself except wine like this, nor does he offer any good for the world.
But Lucy.
But the sight of Lucy, her purity, her compassion, it stirred something. Old shadows of remorse, whispers from old voices within him. It showed the potential buried deep beneath all that dissipation.
His internal despair is agonizing, and he articulates it so beautifully, so painfully during his confession to Lucy.
He acknowledges his love, but states plainly he knew he was undeserving. His love, he says, was like a fire, inseparable in its nature from myself, quickening nothing, lighting nothing, doing no service, idly burning away.
Wow.
He accepts his fate as a failure, but he refuses to taint her life with his chaos. It's devastating.
It's an act of profound preemptive self-sacrifice, isn't it? Knowing he's too damaged to ever be happy, but caring enough to wish happiness upon the person he loves most.
Precisely. And this leads us to that fragile moment of happiness for Darnay and Lucy, their marriage, which, ironically, triggers Dr. Manette's alarming setback.
Showing that despite the peace and love around him, the memory of trauma is always there, always waiting to erupt.
On Lucy's wedding day, we see the old, scared, lost look return to his eyes. He suffers a 9-day relapse, returns completely, obsessively to his shoemaking on his old bench.
Working impatiently, shirtless, the haggard, faded surface of face from the prison returning fully.
It's a classic example of severe traumatic stress, just overwhelming someone during a moment of profound emotional transition, the effective loss of his daughter through marriage. And Mr. Lorry, ever the man of business and loyalty.
He handles it so delicately.
He consults the doctor about this dear friend's case. Manette, completely unaware he's describing himself, diagnoses the cause. A violent stress applied to the one train of association, his years in the Bastille. The trigger.
The ultimate solution is horrible, though, a necessary betrayal of his trust.
Yeah. Even though the shoemaking tools were an old companion and the doctor feared not having them if the feeling returned, Lorry and Miss Pross secretly undertook what they felt was a terrible crime.
What did they do?
They spent the night hacking the bench and the tools to pieces, with a chopper, saw, chisel, hammer. Then they buried the fragments in the garden, feeling and looking like accomplices in a horrible crime.
But it was essential.
It was. They were destroying the physical trigger of his suffering, burying the ghost of his past confinement, hopefully forever.
This secret act of destruction, it's really the final, peaceful, domestic moment before the great storm in France completely overtakes their lives, echoing those earlier whispers of chaos in England.
We shift now to the moment the French system finally breaks. The terrors of revolution, starting in 1789. The Soho corner, where the Manettes live, usually full of echoes of happy footsteps, starts rumbling with these distant, menacing echoes foretelling the conflict.
On a hot, wild night in mid-July, the storm breaks. Defarge leads the living sea, overflowing the city with a roar.
And Madame Defarge. She's exchanged the silent thread of her knitting for the active tools of immediate vengeance. An axe, a pistol, and a cruel knife. She's ready.
Their first act of revolutionary retribution focuses right on the Bastille, but specifically
on the symbol of Dr. Manette's suffering. Defarge demands to see 105 North Tower, the cell where the doctor was held. He finds nothing but feathery wood ashes, a rusted iron ring, and leaves a fire burning in the cell.
Reclaiming the suffering of the past.
It's central to the revolution's narrative, and the retribution is swift, brutal. Illustrating the sudden, total shift in power, we read about the hunt for old Foulon.
The corrupt noble who told the starving people to eat grass.
That guy. He's captured, suffocated with bunches of straw and grass forced into his mouth, then his head is put on a pike. Immediate, symbolic, savage justice delivered by the masses.
Fast forward 4 years, August 1792. Charles Darnay, despite the escalating violence, makes his fatal decision to return to France. Drawn by what the sources call the lodestone rock.
That irresistible, destructive pull.
Yeah.
His decision is driven partly by duty. He felt compelled to save Gabelle, the old family functionary who wrote him from prison after his house was razed.
But it's also reinforced by annoyance, isn't it?
Definitely. The endless, obnoxious vaporing of those Monsignor refugees plotting revenge back at Tellson's London office, combined with the sneers of Stryver suggesting he was abandoning his heritage, it stung him.
And when that letter arrives, addressed to his true identity, Monsieur heretofore the Marquis Saint-Evremond.
That seals it. Darnay resolves to go. He's convinced that because he voluntarily renounced his title and wealth, he can reason with the new authorities. He has this latent conviction, that if bad aims were being worked by bad instruments in his land, he who is better must be there.
He thinks he's an honorable citizen going back.
He does. But he stopped at the Paris barrier. Immediately arrested as an emigrant and aristocrat.
Yeah.
Thrown into La Force, he's isolated. The king himself is now in prison. And the sharp female newly born and called La Guillotine is largely unknown to him. But her influence is about to become universal. Absolute.
Darnay's danger, ironically, gives Dr. Manette this incredible new purpose, a transformation.
It does. The doctor uses his 18 years of suffering as a source of power, becomes a strong figure in Laurie's eyes, successfully pleads for Darnay's safe custody. For the first time, he feels his past agony was strength and power, forging the iron needed to break the prison door for his son-in-law.
But the threat of the revolution never stops advancing, does it? It's insidious.
Never. Lucy waits daily outside La Force for hours, hoping her husband might see her. And she constantly encounters the wood sawyer, who's actually the former mender of roads.
And he has that terrifying joke.
Yeah, he jocosely calls his saw his little guillotine, Lulu, 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 and off her head comes, he says, terrifying Lucy with how casual execution has become.
She then witnesses the Carmagnole dance.
Oh, that terrifying, ecstatic dance, a fallen sport delivered over to all devilry. Wild, screaming, infectious, people linking, spinning, clawing at each other. It's the physical manifestation of the rising murderous rage, a dance celebrating slaughter.
And despite the doctor's influence, Darnay is acquitted in his first tribunal.
Only to be immediately renounced by the Defarges. But critically, it's noted they are joined by one other denouncer, a detail that just hangs there ominously over the family's brief relief.
And the identity of that one other is brutally solved, leading to the ultimate sacrifice that defines this whole saga.
The ultimate accusation comes through Dr. Manette's own manuscript, discovered by Defarge in Bastille Cell 105, North Tower.
Written in soot, charcoal, and blood back in 1767. During his confinement, read aloud to the tribunal.
And the substance of the crime. It's the horrifying, foundational injustice of the aristocracy. The manuscript details how the Marquis and his brother Darnay's father and uncle summoned Dr. Manette to a secluded chateau to treat a dying peasant boy and his violated sister.
The boy, before dying, denounced the noble's shameful rites. The sister, driven mad by her trauma, died later, pregnant, screaming the account of the strokes she'd received. 1, 2, 3, 4, 12. Hush.
That's the scale of the moral debt the Evremond family created. And Manette, in his unbearable agony and powerlessness,
closes the manuscript by denouncing the brothers and their descendants to the last of their race to heaven and to earth.
The irony is absolute, immediate, tragic. The suffering that gave Manette strength and credibility is the very thing that utterly condemns his daughter's husband. Darnay is instantly condemned to die within 24 hours.
Time's run out, and Sidney Carton, the wasted man, the jackal, initiates his final plan, the highest act of service he could possibly render to Lucy.
He uses his knowledge of John Barsad, the spy, who we now learn is also Ms. Pross's estranged brother, Solomon Pross, to get the leverage he needs.
How did he do that?
Carton confronts Barsad, and he uses the secret knowledge held by Jerry Cruncher as his trump card.
Right, we should clarify Cruncher's role again. He's the honest tradesman working for Tellson's.
But secretly, he's a resurrection man, a body snatcher. Digs up newly buried bodies to sell to medical schools. A heinous trade, but, well, common then.
So what does Cruncher know?
Carton forces Cruncher to testify that the burial of Cly, the other spy from the trial, was faked. Cly wasn't in the coffin. Cruncher stole the body himself.
Which proves Barsad lied about attending the funeral.
Exactly. Confirms Barsad is a spy for the overthrown government who just turned his coat to spy for the Republic. Carton uses this threat of denunciation, which would send Barsad straight to the guillotine to force his compliance in the escape plot.
So, the final act in the conciergerie, the day of execution.
Carton drugs Darnay, forces him to change clothes, dictates a farewell letter. Darnay, confused, asks, "What vapor is that?" as the substance knocks him out.
Then Carton ensures Darnay is carried out under Barsaud's supervision.
And then Carton comforts the young seamstress, also condemned for a plot she didn't even understand. He whispers, "I am not afraid to die." And he repeats those powerful words he remembered from his father's grave. "I am the resurrection and the life, say the Lord."
In that moment,
The waste finds profound redemptive meaning, fulfillment. He transforms his entire meaningless life into one single meaningful, selfless act. It's extraordinary.
meanwhile, the escape itself is excruciatingly slow.
Agonizing. Mr. Lorry, Lucy, the child, the doctor, traveling in slow stages, constantly fearing pursuit. Utterly dependent on the speed of the horses and the secrecy holding.
But the threat isn't over yet, Madame Defarge.
She's determined, wants to exterminate the entire Evermond family line. She goes to Lucy's lodging to denounce her and the child for the capital crime of mourning for or sympathizing with a victim of the guillotine.
Which leads to that ultimate duel of fidelity. Miss Pross confronts Madame Defarge.
The fiercely protective Englishwoman, driven purely by loyalty, physically struggles with the ruthless revolutionary, prevents the denunciation, ensures their escape.
At great cost to herself.
She's left with permanent marks from gripping fingers and permanent deafness in one ear, the lasting wounds of her fierce resistance against the revolution's malice. She then drops the key to the empty apartment into the Seine, erasing all evidence.
As the death carts rumble past their escaping carriage, Mr. Cruncher notes that Madame Defarge will never hear anything else in this world.
Confirming the final silence that protected the Manette family. Her end.
Wow, what really stands out in this deep dive, for me, is that stark contrast between the two countries. England suffering from this structural chaos, disorganized crime,
And France, suffering from deeply rooted, systematic oppression that ultimately produced this unstoppable, annihilating counterforce. Two sides of a terrible coin.
The enduring theme is the ultimate personal cost, isn't it? Exacted by both systems, but also the possibility of redemption, even for the most wasted life.
We see the profound power of love, duty, sacrifice, personified by Lucy, Dr. Manette's recovery, and most profoundly by Sidney Carton's willing, prophetic death. His face described as the peacefulest, sublime.
The narrative closes with this potent, haunting warning, a prophecy for all time, really.
Yeah. Crush humanity out of shape once more, under similar hammers, and it will twist itself into the same tortured forms. So the same seed of rapacious license and oppression over again, and it will surely yield the same fruit in the end.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought for you, the listener. We often focus on the spectacular violence of the revolution, the relentless drop of La Guillotine. But maybe we should ask, what part of our modern society, like those complacent lords of 1775, truly believes that things in general were settled forever?
While the shadows of social suffering, the modern St. Antoines fester unheeded, silently knitting their own register of grievances. It's a question worth pondering.